I'm from Muskegon, Michigan. My name's Szpieg. High school art education. I've been here at East Grand Rapids for 26 years. Well, I've always enjoyed the visual arts. It's been kind of therapeutic. It's been one of those things that doesn't necessarily take a lot of money to be able to do. It's something that I've always enjoyed. Ever since I can remember, it's funny, I go, see my parents now, and my mom every once in a while will drag out some of the old sketchbooks that I had from when I was in elementary school of, birds and parts of her garden and perspective drawings and things like that, all very, remedial, but it's funny to kind of look back on those and see, to laugh at them and to see the progression and growth as an artist. And it's something that there's endless possibilities. You're never really done, no matter how good you are. And even things like perspective drawing, technical perspective, there are always things that you can do to push and grow and develop your skill and craft. How I got into education. So my mom's a teacher, was a teacher. My sister's a teacher. My dad's an engineer. Ellen Armstrong was my advisor in my undergrad, and it was my second year at Western, and she was also my oil painting instructor at the time. And she, when we were having one of our academic advising meetings, she said, I noticed you don't have a declared major yet. And I said, yeah, I'm not really sure exactly. And she started asking me some questions. What's your mom do? What's your dad do? Do you have relatives? What do they do? And after that conversation, she said, well, why not try education? I was at Western, and she said Western's got a pretty good education program, so I was like, all right, why not? So I took a few of the classes, and I don't know, either I was so busy, caught up in what was going on with that, I never looked back blindly, or I'm still trying to figure out whether or not I made the right choice. Some of me inside says I should have gone into engineering, or if I had it to do all over again, would I go into something, another design field, industrial design or architecture, or, something like that. Depending on the day, depending on, I think, the year. Part of it might be that I'm too far in now at 54 years old to do anything else. I've got a family, I've got, kids and wife that, thankfully this profession has provided quality of life that allows us to just sustain. And, I don't know, part of it is I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. I think in terms of like the education, especially now with all of the things that kids are dealing with and in their lives and every day, I don't think art is seen as anything that's particularly valuable beyond the superficial, where personally I think it's one of the highest forms of therapy, but I don't know that I'm necessarily here to try to convince people of that. In a world that's wide open throttle, like drinking from a fire hose every day, producing art, working on a drawing, kids that, a variety of medium, working on the wheel, welding, wood crafts, even just drawing with a pencil, gives you however much time you're dedicating to that craft, time away from the distractions and the pressures of the rest of your life. And I talk about that a lot in class, but I stopped trying to sell it, to try to convince people, because in the moment they might say, oh yeah, for sure. And then it just is like a fleeting thought in their head. It's nothing that people kind of make up their mind early that, oh, I'm no good at it. So I just do it for 50 minutes while I'm here in class, and then I don't worry about it anymore. There's a few people, that reach out and say that they still do the craft that they found most enjoyment in from high school, but they're few and far between. Yeah, there's a lot. And, most of the time you ask these questions and I kind of reflect on and think about those kids. Those are the only ones that really keep me coming back, Yeah, I've got a number of kids that I'm still in contact with from 20 years ago that are, I've got a student that's an architect out on the West Coast. I've got a student that's an industrial designer in Oslo, Norway. I've got a number of other students that are doing a variety of things, photographers living in New York City, kids all over the world that are doing things related to the arts, but also kids that I still get emails, I still get handwritten letters, I still get little gifts from, that found that value in the therapeutic qualities and just the fundamental enjoyment of creating. It seems like we are a culture of consumers, and I think there are a few kids who find that producing is so much more meaningful, and they're doing things, on a variety of fronts that might not be like fine art production, but architecture is an art. Designing cookware is an art. That's a former student that's in Norway is working for a cookware company, prototyping and designing pots and pans and things like that. So it's exciting. Yeah, lots and lots of former students that are doing really, really well. I get jealous because I wish I would have, chosen the path. I kind of feel stuck a little bit, but knowing that they're out doing good is enough, I suppose. Oh, it's, makes you feel good in between all of the bad. That, somebody is finding success doing things that they enjoy that are, potentially impacting the quality of life of other people. It's satisfying, it's enjoying being part of their process. It's really nice. I call it the component of delayed gratification, when you do get a message from a kid that graduated 8 years ago that's been kind of radio silence since they've graduated, and then they reach out and they share projects that they're working on, or just you get a random letter that says they were doing something that reminded them of something that happened in the studio or part of their experience in high school that made a difference, and the fact that they had the initiative and ambition to sit down and write a letter or craft an email and send it off to you. Those are the things that I think are I'm finding value in. So I don't have a ton of time. I just finished a charcoal painting or a charcoal drawing last year that I had started 2 years prior from a charcoal unit that we do. And I always try to work right along with the kids on the projects that we do, so they see that, the old adage, those that can't do teach. I think, it's kind of bullshit, because I can. It's not, the reason that I don't isn't because I can't. It's because my job prevents me from doing so. And like I said earlier, with the family, and there's a lot going on. We've got soccer practice and band concerts and all the rest of this stuff on top of trying to manage 6 preps. And I might digress and get a little bit bitter and cynical about some of that stuff, but there's, nobody knows The only other people that know are the other art teachers out there. And it's many days is like a kick in the teeth, you know. So it is those little bits of delayed gratification from former students. This sign right here is from a former student that's a graphic designer out in California. Found that in the mail 3 years ago. I think just to give kids an idea that there's so much more out there than they may think or know at the time. There's a lot to it. You know, a lot of people think, oh, an artist is somebody who's in a dimly lit room with cracked paint hanging from the ceiling, a single light bulb dangling down, wearing a beret, smoking something with a bunch of paintings around. You know, that really doesn't exist anymore. Artists are, you know, engineers, designers, architects, photographers. You know, there isn't, and I bring this up a lot in conversations in the studio with all my classes, there is not one thing that you touch, and I say when you roll out of bed, but even when you're in bed, that hasn't had the hand of some sort of designer, craftsman, artist in its making. You know, there's materials science that go into how a bed is put together, or, you know, your lighting designers, they're artists, they're craftspeople. The ergonomics of the way your toothbrush lays in your hand, the way I've got a number of kids that are in automotive design, the ergonomics of the cockpit of a vehicle. I mean, that's not arbitrary, that's not just happenstance, it's people making good decisions. And a lot of that stems from the very beginnings of understanding the elements and principles of design and how they relate to one another and how it's intentional and not arbitrary. From the very first experience that they have in the studio, I think it's important to, you know, try to open their eyes to the potential and possibility of art. They might not see that right away when you're drawing, you know, 1 or 2 point perspective cubes, but how that's applicable to somebody in automotive design or in architecture or in industrial design, depending on what it is that, you know, you might happen to be working towards for your employer. If it's lighting design or, you know, utilitarian pots and pans, utensils, things like that. I think that satisfaction of maybe not creating things, but helping people create things makes up for my lack of having the time to create things that I want to. You know, if I would have had someone tell me, yeah, you're going to become an art teacher, that's pretty much the end of your creative. You know, you're not going to have time to take on projects that you want to take on because everybody else's projects become yours. Your kids in your studio are your projects. Part of me is run away, run the other direction. Part of it is, I guess, just put your nose down, put your head down and just grind it out. Because you'll hit some kids, you won't hit all of them. Don't waste your time on those that are so obnoxious and belligerent and obtuse that you're never going to hit them no matter what. I guess focus on the good, you know, try to have maintain a positive attitude and just show up every day and get the job done.